Welcome on in, my fellow members of the chapter. And it's a very rare instance in which we can actually have the three main Warhammer 40K action figure manufacturers to make very similar action figures. So when that happens, we must do a comparison test. So in the last comparison test, we took a look at the Ultramarines Intercessor. In this one, we will be comparing the JoyToy Blood Angels Intercessor with the Bandai Assault Intercessor, and then finally comparing all those two with the McFarlane Blood Angels Lieutenant. I know this is not a one-to-one comparison, it is very close. And last time, if I'm not mistaken, Bandai took the cake. So let's see if they are going to repeat another win. All right, let's first take a look at the paint quality of these action figures, and we will start off front and center with this McFarlane action figure. Taking a look at the paint quality, we are looking at pretty much a very flat looking figure. There is absolutely no shading whatsoever that's happening with this Blood Angels Lieutenant. Speaking of things to make action figures jump out, there doesn't really appear to be any sort of highlights whatsoever on this action figure as well. Let's take a look at this very minuscule looking JoyToy action figure off to the left-hand side. Now, on this action figure here, we get to see a ton of shading that's happening within the recesses of the pauldron, on the helmet, on this pauldron. It's literally everywhere, and on top of the shading, you also do get highlighting as well. When you are looking at this side by side with each other, there is a lot more detail that jumps out right here. The paint quality is pretty good on this action figure. There is shading that's weirdly happening on the edges of this action figure rather than in the recesses of it. In fact, I will have to say the shading is probably a little bit too much in my opinion. It kind of makes this action figure look a little bit dull. So the only other area that has highlighting that's happening is this front area. However, I would have to say that the quality of the dry brushing is not that great, but the quality of the shading, I believe, is very top-notch in my opinion. In terms of paint quality score, I would probably have to give McFarlane, unfortunately, the lowest paint quality here. Second place, I'll be honest with you, I'll have to give it to the JoyToy action figure. So I'll definitely have to give the paint quality to the Bandai action figure off to my right-hand side. Let's take a look at the paint color real quickly. I really like the red on the McFarlane action figure, and I also do like the contrasting gold that is happening up here as well. That makes these veteran action figures stand out really nicely. Let's move on to the paint color of the JoyToy action figure. And I'll have to say something about the composition is really nice. It's also very bright looking red compared to the other two action figures here. The red on the McFarlane looks kind of dull. The red, it looks very vibrant and lifelike on the JoyToy one. Now, I'm going to spend some time ripping on this Bandai action figure over here with regards to the color. As I alluded to earlier, I think that this action figure has a little bit too much shading that's happening. During the review, I commented how this thing looked like a very dull orange rather than a vibrant red, and I really did not like that. And it makes this action figure, as you look side by side with the rest of these action figures here, look very, very dull compared to them. It's not the right color, and it doesn't capture the red of a Blood Angel. In terms of paint color, this is probably last on my list, followed by McFarlane. And the action figure that catches my eye the most, just because of the overall composition, is the JoyToy action figure, coming in at first place. Okay, in terms of posability and articulation, let's quickly gloss on this one. So all of these action figures in front of me, they have very excellent articulation. You can pose it very nicely. All three of them do not have any issues with their articulation whatsoever. There's nothing that's being blocked. They have full range of motion. But what I am going to focus on today is kind of like the overall fluidness of the movement of the joints, and obviously I'm going to have to describe it to you. I just feel that for this action figure right here, The arms up here are pretty smooth. When you get to the hip area, it is very tight and very stiff. I wouldn't say hard to pose, but it doesn't glide as much. The knee part, you actually have to put more force into it to get it into the different poses that you want to get in. So the joints, I'll be honest with you, on this action figure are quite stiff. Now let's take a look at the JoyToy one. And the JoyToy one has this ratcheting mechanism on the shoulder area. It's not 100% smooth, but it feels just generally smoother and when you're operating this action figure. I'll have to say that the hip joint right here is definitely a lot smoother and a lot easier to glide around than the McFarlane one. And same thing with the joints here. I think the joints are a lot smoother. I do like the overall feel when I'm operating this guy over here. Now let's talk about the Bandai action figure. This one is weird. I have to say that the joints here do glide a lot better than the rest of the two action figures. It just feels a little bit more smooth in my opinion as I'm rotating the shoulder around here. The hip area does glide very smoothly, but not as smooth as the JoyToy one in my opinion. As you can hear, there's a little bit of a squeak here too. The knee also does operate quite nicely. There is a very satisfying ratcheting mechanism here. However, the thing I'm really kind of irritated by is the squeak. Why is there a squeak when you're trying to operate the knee over here? It doesn't happen with this knee right here, but it happens with this one. And that kind of irritates me a little bit. In terms of posability, I have mixed feelings about these two. I don't really know where to rank them, but I do know that in terms of operating motion and feel, posability, definitely have to give it the JoyToy in my opinion. I'm kind of in a dead tie for these two action figures in terms of posability. High marks to the JoyToy one, 3 points. And then I guess I'll give 2 points each for these guys. All right, let's take a look at the armaments of these action figures. Off to my left is the JoyToy one. In the middle is McFarlane. And off to my right is the Bandai one. But we'll just take a look at the color, the highlighting, and the overall composition of these weapons. Let's start off with the plasma pistol itself. And this mirrors exactly the action figure with no highlights or shading whatsoever. It does have 3 different colors. Sometimes they only give you just one. And then moving down to the power sword, once again, we are blessed and graced with 3 different colors on this particular sword. Next, we will move on to the JoyToy one. And this is your standard bolt pistol here with the black casing and the heavily highlighted metallic silver areas. The chainsword actually looks really nice. You got the silver for the teeth, nice silver for the guard. This area is a silver that really contrasts with a black. And finally, taking a look at the Bandai one, this almost looks very monochrome in color to me, and I'll have to say that it wasn't really painted on very nicely in my opinion. It looks like this area wasn't spray painted on enough. We're going to take a look at this chainsword, and I said during my review that this chainsword has too much black on it. The teeth of this is a metallic black, which blends into the casing. This area should be silver, and it's not. Well, I'll have to say with the overall composition of the armaments, I do like JoyToy's the most. I really like McFarlane's as well. It does have a lot of different colors here. Whereas if you look at the Bandai one, it looks very black and very dull off to my right-hand side. The last thing I'm going to be commenting on is a very subjective one, which is the overall, I suppose, Blood Angels elegance on these action figures. Let's just start off with this McFarlane action figure that's in front. I really like how this is lore accurate. It is a veteran, so it has the gold helmet, and it has this nice heraldic shields and various other adornments that make this action figure jump out a little bit more. Off to my left-hand side is just this Blood Angels Intercessor that has been given assault weapons. And unfortunately or fortunately, this action figure is fairly unadorned with things. He is a regular infantryman. And finally, this is obviously an assault Blood Angels action figure. He does come with a lot of other accessories, such as this cord and the blood vial and the blood drop. So in terms of like Blood Angels-ness, I definitely have to give it to these two. I think, to be honest with you, it is a dead tie for me. They do both capture Blood Angels iconography very well. Whereas, again, this is not a 1-to-1 comparison, unfortunately. So I'll each give 3 points to the Bandai one as well as the McFarlane one, and then 2 points for the JoyToy. Let's tally up the scores and find out who won. All right, members of the chapter, and the results are in. So coming in at second place, believe it or not, we actually have a tie between the McFarlane action figure and the Bandai action figure, and they come in at 10 points each. And then coming in at first place is the tiny runt in front of us, which is the JoyToy Intercessor, and that Intercessor has racked up 13 points. Please let me know what you thought of this comparison video in the comments section. This actually follows the regular format that I follow, where I assign points to all the different categories. Let me know if you like this format better or the casual format that was released not too long ago. So going back to the comparison video, in all honesty, the value for your money still is with JoyToy, in my opinion. The Bandai action figure is very nice. However, it is very expensive for what it is at $110. The McFarlane action figure is also a good value for your money, even though, I'll be honest with you, I think on the secondary market, this action figure tends to be a little bit expensive now that it is discontinued. So if you're specifically interested in picking up the Blood Angels Intercessor, I have teamed up with David Toy, where you will find the link in the description below. And before you check out, do not forget to use the code SNS, where you will receive 12% off of your total purchase, which makes a significant difference, especially if you're going to be buying a lot of these action figures. And with that being said, thank you for watching as usual, and I'll see you all in the next one.